I know for a fact that religion teaches one to be tolerant. But what do we have here? Let me speak on behalf of Christians. I have been to church, I'm a Christian, and I know for a fact that one thing we always preach is salvation. And one thing we always do is to open our doors for everyone or anyone out there to come into the church to give his or her life to Christ. Now, here is something we do. We are always available to ensure that people always come into the bosom of this figure we refer to as Christ. And now it's surprising, really, how the tables have turned, the tides have turned, and you see a lot of religious figures speaking against it. Their main reason stems from a scripture. I mean, there's the usual examples you get is Sodom and Gomorrah, but we are losing really the hold of what religion is supposed to be. We are supposed to be tolerant of each other, respect diverse views, and allow them to come in our presence. But here we are pushing them away. Are we better off than the people who are out there, who are just normal sinners roaming around the earth? So religion, which is supposed to actually have a positive toll on the passage of this bill, it is not. And it is very worrying. I'm still waiting to hear a clerical figure or a religious group support the passage. All their arguments are they are moot. They lead nowhere. They are not making tangible arguments as to why this bill in itself is wrong. They are not making any tangible input. And that is very worrying. I mean, I have had the privilege of speaking to, even away from Christianity, the spokesperson to the chief imam. I wouldn't want to ruffle feathers or anything. But he was extremely excited about the passage of this bill. And he was speaking on behalf of other Muslims. I mean, it's good. I mean, yes, we see how terrible the act is. The usual definition to the LGBTQ act is always referring to the explicit act of sex. That is all we see. We always refer to the mode of which they get about getting themselves intimately. But it is beyond that. I know members in this community who just express love. I know members in this community who just love to be around each other because that is the people they find themselves comfortable with. And we are pushing them away. It goes beyond just sexual activities, people. It goes beyond that. And that is their problem. Their problem is they can't seem to understand why a man will have explicit sexual activities through an exit. And you see, it's interesting how they don't actually attack the other members of the community. It's always the gays who are always being targeted. They forget that it's a community that has transgender people who are actually born with double sex organs. What happens to them? We forget that there are women who are attracted to women. But their attack is always that one particular one because they can't seem to understand or grasp the fact that a man will be attracted to a fellow man. The usual, let me try to be a bit go into details here. The thought of seeing a fellow hairy man, a horse boy, and all they imagine is sex. Yeah. And it's worrying, cool. It should go beyond that. And I feel religion should play a huge role here. Unfortunately, I'm not seeing the bit on tolerance is what we are missing out on. Yeah. The religious figures are not playing their role, and it's very worrying.
I mean, Divine, this is a good point to come in. You hear there, Caleb, who says, yes, the religion must be in, but not in terms of using the religion as a way to criminalize these people. That you should use that as a basis to bring them close, and if there's anything you can do to help, if you think that they need help even in the first place, because there are those who are really against the viewpoint that these people need help. Where do you stand on that?
Well, I totally disagree that the basis for lawmaking should be religion. Because you see, Caleb is
it appears we'll try and fix Divine's line. Divine's connection is a bit poor. Divine, please hold it there for me. We'll try and fix the line and then we'll get back to you. So let me go to Kwaku Lorenzo and take his views on that. If you can take it up from where the gentleman make the point about religion and how an important role it is playing in all this conversation.
Thank you very much. I quite agree with Caleb in the sense that religion does play a main role, a major role in terms of people pushing or wanting for the bill to be passed. So people pushing for the bill to be passed. I think most of this is rooted in homophobia, which is mainly backed by religion. Ghana is a very religious state, whether Islamic, traditional, or Christian. And based on these beliefs, that is why most people shun away from these kind of topics and feel like it's a terrible thing because it's against their religion. But unknown to most Ghanaians, or contrary to popular belief, homosexuality is something that is quite prevalent in the country, much more a reality than people know. So it is about time we actually calm down, sit down, and look at things from a clear perspective, an objective perspective. Because as it stands, that is not what is being done. It is fear. It is the fear of the unknown. It is lack of understanding. It is ignorance, and basically people standing on religion to push away advocacy for LGBTQ rights as it stands.
I mean, there are also push back and say that, listen, this is the Parliament of Ghana making this law, and that they may have considered all these issues that you raised, and they believe that this is not simply something they want to allow to be done in Ghana. You still think that is homophobia?
Honestly, above everything, I stand on it and say that it is rooted in homophobia and ignorance. People do not understand the LGBT community, especially those who are not within the community. It is based on their assumptions, their prejudice, and as people would say, the disgust, quote unquote, of it to them, because it's something that is unusual to them, because they cannot really imagine why people of the same sex would want to be sexually intimate or have some sort of desire or bond or chemistry outside of maybe friendship. They find it unusual, and that is why it repels them. So basically, that prejudice and religion is what pushes for all of this. And I think, oh, sorry.
Please go ahead.
Yeah,
Please
I
go
also
ahead.
I feel like it's unfortunate that this bill is something we have to deal with right now, because widely in the country, people are unaware, especially within the heterosexual community. People are unaware that there's a lot of things contained in this bill that is going to cause a lot of chaos in this country, because it's almost like criminalizing chemistry or affection between people of the same sex, even on a platonic level, where it's not sexual, because this bill has been formulated in a way that it tries to be extensive and cover every corner. Like, they don't want to leave any stone unturned, just like or unlike the previous laws, which had some loopholes. They don't want to leave any loopholes, and by doing that, they basically are going to make life unlivable or uncomfortable for not just the LGBTQ community, but for straight people. That is what people are not aware of right now.
I mean, good point that you make, Lorenzo. And let me bounce that to Divine Adam Kojede, who joins us on the phone now. Divine, you're making a point early on, but do you also agree with Lorenzo when he makes the point that the people who made this law just did not have enough knowledge about the subject to be making this law in the wide and encompassing manner that he did?
Okay. I do not hold that view. Is there feedback coming from your end?
No, it's okay. Please go ahead.
Okay, I do not hold that view. And the reason is that I think the whole bill has been passed out of fear. And, this is a society in which a lot of people appear to abhor the act. And it affects their cultural sensitivity. And so they are afraid of it. People are afraid that, I'll go to my school, and then by the time my child will come back from school, he has become homosexual or one thing and the other. And so I think that it is not, because these are very educated people in Parliament. And so they have a wide range of research papers available to them. They went through a wide consultative process. And so the argument cannot be that they do not know exactly what they are doing, or that they do not know much about the community. They know a lot, but they simply refuse to accept that this is something that we can countenance in the country. But I wanted to take us back to the point of Caleb, where he says that we should also consider religion in this thing. I mean, I hold a separate view to say that Ghana is a secular state, and so the basis for lawmaking cannot be religious inspiration. You know, to say that, I mean, what is true? The Bible, for instance, teaches about tolerance and all of that. But the same Bible, I mean, the other people who quote the Bible and say, well, when there were homosexuals in Sodom and Gomorrah, what did God do? God didn't say that they should come to him. God destroyed them. And so in the same way, we could punish these people. You understand me? So the moment, I mean, if we say that we are a public, we are a secular state, then as much as possible, the basis for our governance, the basis for our lawmaking should not be inspired by religious texts.
But Divine, isn't that really theory? Because whilst we are a secular state in the constitution, we are still a deeply religious state. 70% of Ghanaians are Christian, 17% Muslims. Others subscribe to African traditional religion. And so while being a secular state, the fiber of your society is deeply religious. How do you
Which is true.
Yeah.
But I mean, I'm just making the point that, I mean, if the people hold the personal view that we should not allow this, then that is an argument we can have. But to say that our religion should be the basis for what we are doing, then we are wrong. Because, I mean, there are other people who can go to the extreme and say that, well, the Bible says, I mean, Jesus Christ, for instance, says that no one can go through the Father, or no one can go to heaven except through him. There are those people who would misinterpret the Quran, for instance, to say that people who do not believe in the Prophet Muhammad are infidels, and so they should be killed. You know, so I'm just trying to say that the reason why we have a constitution, the reason why we have accepted the separation of the state and the church, or the state and religion, is for some of these things. Because the moment you begin to open the room for some of these things, you are opening the floodgates for a lot of things.
Interesting.
So, I mean, I hold a completely different view. I am an absolutist on this matter, that the state should be separated from the church. But coming back to the substantive issue, I think that a lot of nuance is lost in the discussions that are going on in the media. Number one, but before I use this, I think that the law in this current case is completely unnecessary. Is it a case that the act was not already criminalized in Ghana? It was. Kwaku, you are reading law, so you may want to educate us.
On natural canal knowledge.
There's a provision that talks about unnatural canal knowledge, isn't there?
There is, but and that is the point people make when they talk about hypocrisy, for instance. Because unnatural carnal knowledge extends to certain sexual activities, even between man and woman, which can actually be criminalized. For instance,
Precisely.
Yeah, and so do you sense any hypocrisy in there? And that's the question I wanted to throw.
I absolutely do. I mean, people who would make the religious case, okay, does the Bible not say do not fornicate? What is the definition of fornication? Sex before marriage. Do they not have sex before marriage? Do people not commit adultery? Is it not against the 10 Commandments? Do you understand me? But I mean, so there is no doubt as to whatsoever that this is hypocrisy. You understand me? But I mean, the point I want to make is that there was already a law. So homosexual practices were already criminalized. So what is this bill seeking to do?
Right, interesting, Divine. I'll come back to you again. But because you talk about hypocrisy, that's where I want to go to Joshua still again. And Divine makes a good point about existing issues like fornication, adultery, which is also against Ghanaian family values. So why are we not making a law to criminalize all those, or as one after the other? Because those are ones that are actually even more perverse in Ghanaian society. There are those who make the argument that adultery and fornication, for instance, which is frowned on by almost all major religions in the world, including the ones practiced in Ghana, are much more perverse than LGBTQ activities. Joshua.
Okay, so Yeah, so thank you very much. And then when it comes to some of these things, I'm very careful to choose my words because the whole idea of hypocrisy and what we seek to do as a people is the reason why I think that there is a need for us to really find a way to accommodate all persons in our country. This is because, first of all, if you want to have laws against, let's say, how do you call it, against marriages, or let's say against you being with more than one person, we live in a country where in our traditional religion, you are allowed to marry as many as you want, and there's nothing that frowns upon it. In the Muslim religion, you are allowed to marry as many as four. In the Christian, some are saying that, I mean, depending on the school of thought that you want to go through, some of them are agreeing that, I mean, one person is okay. And the fact that we can't even marry more than one person if you'd want to do a court marriage in itself shows how quote unquote selective and hypocritical our laws itself are. That we agree as a nation that we are a secular state, but at one breath we are saying that you can't legally by law marry one more than one person. But then we understand in principle that because of the way of our culture and the individuals that are living within the geographical, I mean, landscape of the country called Ghana, individuals subscribe to different cultures. For that reason, you can have, I mean, an individual with more than one spouse. And this is the reason why I think that when it comes to this law, for me, I would agree with Divine when he says it's a bit hypocritical because then it doesn't look at the various aspects that comes with it. I don't understand why in one breath we are saying that the constitution abhors unnatural carnal knowledge, but then with the snippets, and this is me referring to the interview between MFA Ampao and that of Professor Gajapo
MFA
and
Pau.
yes, and Ampao, sorry, and then the and when Sam George was in the studio at Joy some days back, where MFA tried to, MFA corrected that there has been some kind of changes in the bill where Honorable Sam George even assented to it that with the comment that Professor Gajapo was making about the use of sex toys and all those things does not really fit into it because heterosexuals do. That was when Sam George actually went on ahead to say that it only talks about the use of these sex toys on same sex and thing that has to do with LGBTQ. And that is where the hypocrisy is. The hypocrisy is that in your constitution, it says that everything above what unnatural carnal knowledge is, which is a heterosexual like penetration between a man and a woman, is criminal. But then you form an act that is supposed to quote unquote have a definition to that provision because that is some of the argument that individuals are propounding. But then in that same particular act that you want to put it together, you are still saying that even though blowjob or going down cunnilingus or using sex toys on heterosexual is unnatural carnal knowledge, but these things should be accepted because it's not on a same sex spectrum. Then why do we even have that provision in the Constitution in the first place? If we really want to make sure that we are going by the letter and spirit of the Constitution, which says that, anything, above unnatural carnal knowledge is a crime, then all of these things should have been critically looked at. So I think that the reason behind this particular bill, like I said in my initial submissions, that it seeks to, first of all, want to restrict the spaces in which some of these conversations about LGBTQ and the whole idea about sexuality would be able to enter. And fair enough, I understand. But the point where it becomes a bit hypocritical, the point where it seeks to now become punitive, it seeks to now infringe on rights, is where I think that there should be a look at. I understand the cry of individuals. In states like Canada, in as much as the federal government allows the whole LGBT conversation in conservative provinces in the West, like Saskatchewan, Manitoba, Alberta, especially Saskatchewan, There are things that the federal government agrees to that they don't. For that reason, they have particular laws to it. An example is how far, I mean, a child or a parent needs to have consent in teaching kids below a certain age, I mean, sexualities. So in provinces like Saskatchewan,
Yeah.
there's a law that says that, I mean, you have to talk to the parents before.
Before you
These
can
are
do that.
based on what the people in that province want to subscribe to.
I mean, so it tells you about how individualized some of these communities are trying to make the laws. And whilst having this conversation, of course, Ghana Connect is about the people. So we read your messages and then we tap into some of them. One of you, Kingsley Taco, has joined us on the phone now. He's just sent us a WhatsApp message to share his views on this. So, Kingsley, what are your views on what our guests have said? What do you stand on that?
Yeah. I've been listening to you guys, but what I also have to say is that it baffles my mind to think about people rising against the anti-gay bill, because I'm a Christian, an elder of the Church of Pentecost in Sunyani. If you read the Bible, for times it has even searched for the exact quotation. But I know that it is an abomination for a man to have sexual intercourse with a man, or a woman to have sexual intercourse with a woman. It is an abomination. And when we say abomination, abomination is something that if you do, it is very harmful to your personality, or it can even cost your life. You understand me? Hello?
Yes, please. You are live.
Uh-huh.
So you want the president to sign this?
Exactly.
So we mean,
exactly.
yeah,
He should sign it.
the people have shared concerns about the human rights of others. In your message, I see you talk about the human rights vis-a-vis polygamy and other things. What's the point you seek to make?
The issue is this: if elsewhere, America and other European countries, it is illegal for a man to marry like more than two wives, or more than one wife. And they are saying that because of human rights, on the basis of human rights, we in Ghana should put our culture aside and then put everything aside and ascribe to same-sex marriage. Then I don't know what kind of human rights we want to give to people. If you want to give them the right to sin, or what? Do you want to give them the right to sin against God, or what?
Well, I mean, Kingsley, good point there that you make. Thank you very much that you made time to join us. Kingsley Taco has been listening and he has shared his views on this. You can sense that he's deeply religious about this, and Kingsley has shared that. But Divine, you listen to Kingsley. He says, if you allow these people to do these things, you are allowing them to sin. The overall majority of Ghanaians seem to back this. And isn't that what sovereignty is about? The people say this is what they want. In the overwhelming majority, the tweets I'm seeing so far is incredible. We'll get into them shortly. So, what do you think the president, in what position will he be when so many people say he must do this, he must sign this into law immediately, politically?
I think from the beginning, I think there's been a lot of misinformation, to the object of this bill. I heard Kingsley Nyako and the speaker before me say that why do we want to allow same-sex marriage? I do not think that people have been advocating for same-sex marriage, or that there was even a strong current of opinion or strong advocacy that homosexuality and heterosexual practices should be legalized. As I said, the act itself was already criminalized.
I mean, Divine,
nobody was saying that you should allow same-sex marriage.
Okay,
for which reason you seek to, say that you are criminalizing it. Nobody was advocating for it.
Okay, so Divine, this has taken a political twist already. There will be political consequences. The Catholic Bishop Conference has already spoken. What do you think the role of politics will be in this?
Well, I mean, in a country where political expediency drives a lot of the decision making, I think that the president may just very well sign it if there is a lot of political pressure. But then again, his disposition ever since this bill was introduced in Parliament also suggests that he is not in, support of it. And so, he remains to be seen what the president's decision will be. But I think that he has smartly indicated that because of the current challenge at the Supreme Court, he's going to wait until it is signed.
Okay. I mean, Caleb, what do you stand on that? Do you think the president may be swayed politically to do this because the church is putting so much pressure on his government? His political party is seeking to break the eight. What role do you think politics plays in all of this?
Well, I'll be very honest. From the onset, I really wish this issue was not politicized. But at this point, it's very, very clear the opposition decided to capitalize on it to make way and politicize the whole issue. Now, this is why I say so. I'll use it as a response to come to the question you asked. I mean, clearly, the opposition knows very well that this would be a very hard ask of the government to pass. Knowing very well the financial implications it will have, they know the government will not do it. And he knows very well that once the government doesn't do it, it's a huge campaign message to Daniel. They are going to push the agenda out there when the campaign intensifies and the seats have to draw closer to December. We all know the rallies and the messages that go aside from the usual 24-hour economy Mahama is preaching. We know very well if this bill is not passed, it will be part of their messages. They will count the government and put it out there that the NPP government did not allow for the bill to be passed. They are going to insist and make sure that the NPP government is seen as villainous, is seen as a group of people in government who accept who allow for gays to go about their activities. So I'm very scared at this point. I mean, I'm in fear. I'll be very honest because we are playing with people's lives here. By politicizing the issue, we are politicizing life, and that is a worry. We should be politicizing policy. We should be politicizing bills, laws. That is what we should be politicizing. But we are playing with life, and that is a huge concern, quickly. But it's very obvious and evident the tangent that the NDC is going with, because like just today, let me just rope this in. Just today, you know the death of
Mr. John Kuma. Yes.
Can you imagine the NDC, for instance, is politicizing the issue? One of the NDC people was saying that they will ensure they do investigations at their end to pick up the theories that are flying. And I believe you know the theories that are flying.
Yeah.
Issues of poison and fear. And they are politicizing someone's death. In that same way, they are politicizing this issue. It will be a campaign message. They'll go door to door and preach to people that NPP people are gay. They are passing this, they are passing that, so don't vote for them. And it's going to be a huge determinant in the 2024 election. Come hell or high water, it's really going to be a huge factor as to who breaks, as whether they break the eight or not. And that is why they are also playing their cards for, because they know very well that if they don't pass that bill, if they don't pass it into law, they are going to lose a lot of the constituents. The Christian majority are going to vote against them. It will become a message in society. You see pastors saying that the NPP government is supporting gays, don't vote for them.
Don't vote for them. I mean, good point that Caleb makes. And when it comes to politicizing that, I think the NDC would know very well what happened when Professor Mills died, and they would know that it's better not to play politics when anybody's dead. But Divine, good point there that Caleb makes. It appears the NDC is hanging part of their electoral fortunes on this. Are we getting the same reading, or we are probably just overreading this? Hello, Divine?
Yeah, Kwaku.
Yes, I'm saying Caleb makes a point about the NDC hanging part of its electoral fortune on this.
No, I totally disagree. And I say so because in the political communication that has facing the passage of this bill, and even before the passage of this bill, you would see that this has not been a party policy. I mean, the bill is a bipartisan.
John Mahama says he's for it. Esedin Ketiadems are all for it in Parliament. It was almost the minorities that shepherding this through. 7 out of the 8 sponsors are members of the minority.
The fact remains that John Mahama said the same thing President Akufo-Addo says, which is that they do not support same-sex marriage. obviously, leading members of the NPP have also said they do not support same-sex marriage. Even the president has on occasion called this bill the bipartisan bill. And so I do not hold the opinion that it is an NDC bill. It is a bipartisan bill. And knowing how politically divided this country, if it was a bill that didn't enjoy the support of both houses, then the NPP wouldn't support the bill. And so I hold the opinion that it's a bipartisan bill. I do not think it's an NDC bill. Okay. Even though people like Sam George and co were the ones who sponsored the bill. I am told that there were also NPP MPs who were part of the sponsors of the bill.
Yeah, definitely. In fact, for someone that reports from Parliament, I can tell you, of course, one person is part of the majority NPP side who co-sponsored this. This bill was passed in a unanimous sense because there was nobody in Parliament on the day who voted for it, who voted against it. At one point, when the Speaker asked MPs who are against it to get up, no one did. Members of the majority and minority side seem united on it, except the majority leader, Alexander Fenyomaken, who's been very vocal about his opposition to the custodial sentence bill. And when he moved amendments to replace them to community sentence, he lost. And some members of his own party voted against him. Time to bring in Michael Papani-Ashale to get us some comments. Our social media console is bustling with messages. I have some interesting Twitter poll that I'm going to read to you. But Michael, what are people saying on WhatsApp?
Well, Kwaku, let's start with Ni texting us from Tema West, right? Sun City, and he says, well, Nanado will not sign. This bill will be dragged back and forth with some legal tussles. This bill will not see the light of day under this government. I dare him. Let's go to Samuel, who says, this is a test of our sovereignty. What happened to Ghana beyond aid? Are we the first to pass an anti-LGBTQ++ bill? Well, happy belated 67th independence. Thank you, Samuel. Let's go to Spinters now, where Nana says, please, not passing this bill means opening our country to, well, I don't know why I use that word, but he paints an impression that, well, it will affect our tourism. Continuous. Let me take another message here. This one from Lawrence, all the way from who it says, religion is ready to help those who want to be helped. But if they want to spread their activities into the public, then I have a problem. What you do in your bedroom is not my concern, but don't bring that into the public thinking it is right. If the courts and the president refuse to listen to the Ghanaian people, it will open the door to attack people freely because the bill itself protects these people. Well, that's Lawrence. Now, this one from K says is the advocate Lorenzo on the program saying we should accept thievery, stealing because it's common in Ghana? How? I can't think far. Well, I don't think that by his comment he directly meant that you should do that. Or he's only speaking for that, and you heard him categorically in a sentence that if you are in the community, I'm safe to assume that he is, then he's saying that, well, you have to protect us as well. So he's not by extension in any way saying that, well, you should accept thievery and stealing and all of that. Now, that's not what he's saying. Well, this one from Jesse in Takumon, our backyard here, says that, well, to secure any argument we ill-informed position of the passage of the anti-gay bill, I strongly recommend an inclusion of a referendum in this year's election, so we know the position of the citizens. Well, that's from Jesse. This one from Kokomlimni comes from Elvis Datson. He says, good evening. The president must sign it. Hashtag quickly. Kwaku, final one here from he says, if the bill is not passed, everyone in this country is not safe, including our school children. Already, some of the male teachers, I'm not sure I want to put this out still, but yeah,
some allegations there.
That's yours from
it doesn't add
Ashaman.
his name?
Yeah,
Okay.
that's Ashaman, but no name.
Right. I mean, thank you very much, Michael. Michael, bring it us the pulse of the nation from WhatsApp, I should say. And on Twitter, we had a poll: should the president sign the anti-LGBTQ bill into law? Yes or no? Papani, can you guess what the scores will be? The results? Can you guess?
I'm guessing by the numbers that we have on our WhatsApp console, then we should be expecting that most people will say the president should sign it.
It's an absolute beating. Yes, 80% of Ghanaians who've participated in this poll on Twitter says the president should sign the anti-LGBTQ bill into law, while 20% say the president should not do so. We're just about wrapping up. We have a few minutes. So let's go around the table again and ask this same question that we put to our guests on Twitter and other places, whether or not you think the president should sign this. Let me start with you, Isal. If you can do that for me in a minute, I'd appreciate it. Should the president sign this bill into law or not? Hello, Joshua. If you can unmute.
Yeah, am I unmuted now?
Yes. Should the president sign the bill into law or not?
I think that it should be signed into law with modifications. But as it is now, I would go for a no.
President can't do that modification on his own. He has to bring that to parliament and all. But you think some changes should be made?
I'm saying this is because on the act, like Act 106, it talks about how the president has the right to either assent
to propose amendments. Article 106,
exactly, propose amendments. So I'm suggesting that the president should propose amendments taking into consideration that these are human lives first, and also of the strong conviction that because he comes from a human rights background, at least he would understand how it is like and get to understand how these rights are very, very important and they're supposed to be kept the way that they are supposed to be. So for that reason, I'm expecting the president to withhold the bill by proposing some amendments, and that would be debated. And hopefully, I think that if two-thirds of parliament would want to oppose it, then I think that some comment that were being made by someone like Caleb would now come to, the bear of all of us to see that it's actually not an NDC thing, but a bipartisan thing.
Okay. Lorenzo, should the president sign this into law or not?
No, I do not believe the president should sign this, because if he does, I don't believe he will, but if he chooses to, I believe he's opening Pandora's box. There's a lot of implications locally and internationally that come along with him assenting to this bill, because it is very, very flawed. A lot of things within the bill as it stands are just going to create a lot of problems, even for non-queer people outside of the LGBTQ community are going to face a lot of issues. And as I said, this thing is not as an isolated or minority thing as people actually believe. It is as common as you can think.
Okay.
And Angel Maxine says, you don't know it, or you might not know, but your brother, your sister, your mother, your father, the tailor, the nurse, the whatever, is also or might also be queer. And you are probably putting people's lives in danger. Even now, even though it has not been assented to, people have been attacked. People are going to be killed, lynched unfairly
over this. Thank you very much, Lorenzo, for sharing those views with us. In fact, we've played some sounds of people who say they are afraid for their lives since this bill was passed. Divine, to sign or not to sign? Hello, Divine.
I do not believe they should sign the bill in its current situation.
In what situation should it be signed?
Well, if the sentences are,
reviewed,
reduced, or even take out the custodian sentences completely, because I do not think that is something for which reason you put someone in jail.
Thank you very much, Ivan. Let me give the last word to Caleb. Caleb, to sign or not to sign?
Yes, hi, Kwaku. Kwaku, let me just say this. I wish somehow they signed and realized how much of a terrible decision they would have made. Because in Uganda, some of the MPs have been refused visas. Yeah. We really see the repercussions of this. But then, to answer your question, I believe this bill needs further amendments. It needs a lot of amendments. And I propose he should hold on to it. A national stakeholder conversation. Get the people who think that it is infringing on human rights. Get the people who think it is right. Get the people who think it will have financial implications. So we come to a right consensus on it. So at the moment, you should withhold it because there's a lot of amendments. I'll start with Kojeja, who thinks that custodial sentence should be moved to community sentencing. Among other issues, the bill still needs work.
Thank you very much, Caleb Ahinakwa. Caleb Ahinakwa, Lorenzo, Divine, and Joshua Isel, thanks so much for connecting with us. Chaco connected with us on the phone as well. One of the people who sent us message. For all those of you who sent us message on WhatsApp, on social media, on Twitter, on Facebook, everywhere, we've read them, and we are grateful that your messages came in. The box is still very hot, and the box will stop with the president. By next week, we expect that he will be seized with this matter. He would have to take a decision, a very, very tough decision that will have consequences either way. If he signs, there'll be consequences. If he does not sign, there'll be consequences. And I do not envy the president. I don't want to be in his seat. He has a very tough decision to make, and all Ghanaians are watching. When he does, and there's the need to come back on this conversation, Trust Ghana Connect will still come here and have a very good conversation. But thanks so much for listening. Thanks so much for sharing your views with us. My name is Kwaku Asante. Andy Dusty is up next with the library, and we're going to discuss very nice conversation as always on the show. You don't want to miss. We'll be back again same time next week. Stay with joy.